We're wired to think activity is good. Phones ringing, people sprinting, fires everywhere, and it all looks heroic. You see it in hospital dramas, in restaurant shows, you see it in hotel rescue shows. Chaos is more entertaining, after all. But here's what I've learned the hard way. Working harder isn't the same thing as building something stronger. And if you try to fix everything with effort alone, you don't become more excellent. You just become exhausted and eventually resentful. If you don't know who I am, my name is Colin Pearson. I'm a fourth-generation innkeeper at Stanton House Inn in Greenwich, Connecticut. Over the past several years, I've been rewiring how I think about excellence in hospitality. Because I used to believe that if something wasn't working, the answer was simple. Try harder, care more, be better. It turns out that's not excellence. That's a slippery slope to burnout. I didn't learn this from a book or a workshop or a class. I learned it in the winter of 2019 to 2020. We'd closed for our usual winter break, and I was done. Not tired, just done. I felt like butter spread over too much bread, to use a Lord of the Rings quote. The year before, I wore every hat. Guest complaints, housekeeping, maintenance, operations, everything. I wore a lot of hats. And I had a wonderful housekeeper on the team. Warm, effective, great culture fit. But she called out a lot. And when she called out, I did her job of cleaning. So instead of leading the business, I was constantly patching it. By the end of the year, I realized something. If I kept running the inn that way, I wouldn't make it to year 7, or after that for that matter. And an older innkeeper once told me most innkeepers burn out around 7 years, and that has always stuck with me. That winter break wasn't relaxing. It was sobering. And I realized this wasn't a people problem. It was a structure problem. Fast forward to 2025, we had an answering service that handled calls after hours and overflow calls during the day. We got a few complaints, so we removed it. It sounded noble. We'll handle it ourselves. We'll take better care. It was also a mistake. Now our hosts have to drop everything the moment the phone rings. Booking inquiry? Telemarketer? Wrong number? Didn't matter. They stopped focusing on the guests in front of them. And after hours, calls went to voicemail. In our industry, that's not great. Then our phones went down for a week. In the past, they would have forwarded automatically. This time, they just rang and rang. Google briefly thought we'd closed and started delisting us for our own brand name, in fact. That was a rough September. All because we tried to care more instead of designing better. So we reinstated a new answering service. Guests love it. The team trusts it. No call goes unanswered. That's not working harder. That's working smarter. There's a concept I love from a UVA business course called Grow to Greatness. When there's a fire, as in something goes wrong, and something always goes wrong, first step, put the fire out. But then you leave a fire extinguisher behind. Here's what that means for us. Fix what you can control, document what failed, change the system to prevent repeat fires. We stopped asking who messed up and started asking what in the system set us up for failure. That one question changed everything. So what does designing better actually look like? Let's start with access and stability. Smart locks, smart thermostats, smart lighting in common areas. Each one prevents a future late night panic call. Now, self-service comfort. Extra towels in rooms, antique sideboards stocked with backups, plates and napkins out and available, an espresso machine in the dining room, plus hot water kettles and French presses in every room. If you need something at 10 p.m., it shouldn't require interrupting someone's personal time, because that's not luxury, that's dependency. And then there's communication design, our texting platform, video guides for Wi-Fi and smart locks. A real answering service, staffed by people who know us. Every change came from one question. If this happens again, does someone have to sprint? Or can the system handle it on its own? None of this photographs well, of course. All of it protects calm, though. And calm is the only way a place like this lasts more than a few very intense years. Sometimes a team member says, I just need to try harder. And I stop them. You are enough. The issue isn't you. It's your system. If check-in feels chaotic, we don't ask someone to smile more, we adjust the check-in process. If guests keep asking the same question, we don't repeat ourselves louder, we redesign the room layout. Excellence isn't personality, it's structure. Consistency is boring. And that's the point. People live in chaotic worlds. One of the biggest gifts a small business can offer is steadiness, consistency, predictability. We've started receiving more reviews that say, this was our 5th stay, our 10th stay. It's always wonderful. That's the real win for us. Big brands can fake excitement. They can't fake years of consistently great stays. If we stopped reviewing our systems for a year, the first thing to break wouldn't be revenue. It would be our identity. We believe in getting 1% better every day. It's one of our core values, actually. In leaving things better than we found them. Another core value. If we stopped adjusting and refining, we'd slowly become reactive again. And reactive businesses burn people out. There's another layer to this that took me years to understand. Burnout isn't caused by too much work. It's caused by too little structure, too few assets. Grinding and working hard feels productive. It feels noble. It even feels responsible, but grinding doesn't compound. Assets do. Over time, I realized the calmest businesses aren't built by heroic effort. They're built by assets that keep paying you back. For us, that shows up in 3 places. First, physical assets. We don't buy fast furniture. We don't design rooms for trends. We invest in antiques, use durable, timeless materials, and timeless layouts for that matter. That costs more up front and it takes longer, but 5 years later, we're not completely redecorating the room. That's an asset. Second, operational assets. We have documented systems. We have an answering service, smart locks, smart thermostats, extra towels, clear layouts, on-call documentation. Each one removes friction permanently. Each one saves a future 10 p.m. panic call. That's an asset. Third, cultural assets like our playbook, our core values, our purpose, grow to greatness as part of onboarding new team members. Even videos like this. This isn't just content. It's documentation of how we think. So when a new team member joins, they don't have to guess what good looks like. Grinding requires you to show up every time. Assets keep working even when you're not. And when I look back at that winter of 2019, 2020, I wasn't burned out because the work was impossible. I was burned out because I was the system. And that's not sustainable because too much depended on effort and not enough depended on structure. That's a completely different problem, and it has a completely different solution. You probably have something in your life you want to last. A business, a career, a relationship, a family rhythm. The temptation is always the same. Push harder, care more, try harder. But lasting things aren't built on effort alone. They're built on design. And like I've said in earlier episodes, we're not chasing drama here. We're building something that still feels good years from now. We're not trying to run a dramatic business, although I do have a flair for that. We're trying to run one that's lasting, and that means accepting something simple. Effort feels noble, but structure creates calm. And calm, sustained for many years, is what guests actually remember. Because staying power is rarely loud, but it's almost always intentional.